Cells contains graphic and occasionally violent content, which some listeners may find disturbing. Cells is not recommended for children. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Cells. I'm Cole, and I'm here with Casey, and this is our final episode on the cases of Michella Welch and Jennifer Bastian. But don't worry, this isn't our final episode. We are just getting started here. We'll be back every month with brand new cases and episodes for you to binge. So if you're listening for the first time, we recommend going back and listening to episodes 1 through 4. We have heard from so many of our listeners already, and we can't thank you enough for spreading the word and helping us grow. We'll be doing a Q&A episode next week to answer all of your questions on these cases, Tacoma, DNA technology, and more. So keep the questions coming, and we'll answer them all in episode 6. And if you want to see more on these cases, we posted tons of images that we've come across on our website at cellspodcast.com. So just click the files and then click on Taken Too Soon in Tacoma. There's a lot of good stuff on there. All right, let's dive. In our last episode, we left off with Robert Washburn, the man convicted of the 1986 brutal murder of 13-year-old Jennifer Bastian. But unfortunately, no luck yet for Michella's case.
All of the same steps taken for Jenny were simultaneously being taken for Michella.
All those DNA tests of those 160 men were compared against both of the girls.
Right. And the Parabon sketches, composite things, sending the stuff to the genealogists.
Yeah, those are the sketches that Parabon creates on what they think the killer looks like based on the DNA found at the crime scene.
Right. Michella's killer was not in the 160 samples collected and tested. Back in September of 2015, Parabon had provided police with the snapshot of Michella's killer. They released this composite, if you remember, to the public in 2016 during the CART exercise, but it didn't bring out any helpful leads. And as we said before, maybe because it was a snapshot of what the killer would have looked like at around 25 years old, and who's going to remember from that long ago? Tacoma PD had also submitted the YSTR profiles to the 2 different genetic genealogists. The first, if you remember, was in 2015, Dr. Fitzpatrick. The second was in 2016, Dr. Ray Venter.
So those were the 2 that were finding the surnames that were associated with that DNA.
Right.
They didn't find anything, though, did they?
No, they did. They said that they didn't find any exact matches, but there were some possibles. But it was 2015, and the technology was improving by the minute. So in 2016, when they do it again, a different genealogist takes the profiles, analyzes them, puts them in the database, does the genealogy, the ancestry, and she didn't find any definitive results either. However, just because there weren't any definitive results in 2015 or even 2016, it isn't just because of the technology. It's also because at-home DNA kits weren't available on the mainstream market at an affordable price until 2015. So while both of these genealogists analyzed the DNA and uploaded it to GEDmatch, it could have yielded no exact matches simply because the relatives hadn't gotten their kits and sent them in yet. And I want to let you all know that these 2 genealogists are huge in the field of genetic genealogy. For example, Dr. Fitzpatrick has played a key role in solving other cases like these, along with being the co-founder of the DNA Doe Project, and she actually coined the term forensic genealogy. And similarly, Dr. Ray Venter was the one that helped identify the Golden State Killer and one of the suspects in the Bear Brooks murders. But time continued to march on, bringing us to 2018. Enter C.C. Moore, genetic genealogist extraordinaire. C.C. Moore started her career in genetic genealogy by helping adopted children trace their ancestry to find biological relatives. She has since become a world-renowned expert in the field of genetic genealogy, and in 2018, she joined forces with the Parabon Nanolabs team to lead their new genetic genealogy services for law enforcement unit. Moore explained it as finding your roots meets CSI. It was there at Parabon that she began working on the case of Michella Welch. Immediately following the identification and arrest of Robert Washburn, but no identification or arrest of the murderer for Michella, the Tacoma Police Department gave Parabon Nanolabs authorization to run genetic genealogy on the samples that they used for the snapshot back in 2015. So Moore, like most genetic genealogists, uses public DNA databases, mainly one called GEDmatch. Now, GEDmatch is a public database where you can upload your profile to expand your search for relatives. For example, I did an ancestry DNA test and Cole did 23andMe. So we would never find each other because each company only searches for matches within their own database. But if I upload my ancestry profile to GEDmatch and Cole uploads her 23andMe profile to GEDmatch, boom, we find each other.
And GEDmatch was created by this guy who lives in Florida who just super nerds out on ancestry and created it for people to cross-reference. When I read about it totally reminds me of your dad. Something your dad would do.
Yeah, it actually really, really is. So the site was mainly used by adopted people or any people that had no idea where they came from biologically. But in order to find a single specific person, it takes much, much more work than just uploading a profile. So after uploading the profile, Moore identified an individual who shared enough DNA with that suspect profile to be a first cousin once removed, which I guess is like the genetic genealogy jackpot. And she also found a second cousin and several more distant cousins.
This all has to go on the paternal side though, right? Because of the Y chromosome?
Yeah. But this is also where the hard work comes in. When it comes time to start building out the family tree, you not only look at DNA, like I talked about before, you have to look at public records, birth certificates, marriage certificates, census reports, and on and on and on.
Because I look at my 23andMe and my connections and my relatives, and I have no idea who they are.
Yeah, same.
Or how, or what side they're on, or I have no idea. A couple have messaged me and still can't figure it out.
Yeah, the only ones that I know are my siblings that also got the kid for Christmas. So she's going through all of this and trying to build out the tree. And according to an article in the New York Times, Moore gets stumped. No pun intended with that. I just realized.
Family tree.
Yeah. She hits a family tree dead end. But thinking outside the box.
Is that a family tree stump?
Nice. Yeah. She hits a family tree stump. That's awesome. But thinking outside the box, and her ability to do so is probably why she's a leader in this field, she considers the possibility of misattributed paternity. Basically, the person that public records are saying should be the suspect's grandfather was not actually the grandfather. According to Moore, it was actually the Parabon snapshot from back in 2015 that gave her the most crucial clue to the killer's actual family tree. The ancestral analysis portion of the snapshot had shown the killer had about 9% Native American DNA. Moore realized she could trace the suspect's ancestry back to his Native American great-grandparents on his father's side and just follow the migration of his ancestors to Washington state. This led Moore directly to two brothers who were then identified as people of interest because of Moore's investigation and their age and location at the time of the killing. So police begin their search for these brothers.
This stuff is so cool.
It is so cool. We're going to have to do like a bonus episode on details about this stuff and how it works.
We'll call it Nerding Out.
Yeah, perfect. Nerding Out with Casey and Cole.
Or Are You Stumped?
Oh my God. So they locate Randy and Gary Hartman. Both brothers are still living in Washington state, not far from Tacoma, actually. After following both brothers for several weeks, the police were able to collect discarded items from each brother that contained their DNA. For Randy, it was a straw, and for Gary, it was a napkin. Police sent both samples to the lab on June 6th, 2018, to be compared with the DNA evidence that they had from the swabs in Michella's case. Not long after that, they get the results. The straw from Randy Hartman was not a match to the DNA found on Michella. But the DNA from Gary Hartman's napkin, it was a match. Remember when we told you a crumpled up McDonald's bag was one of the keys to this case? Well, that crumpled up McDonald's bag is what contained the napkin that was covered in his DNA. The crime lab estimated the probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random from the U.S. population with a matching profile as 1 in 6 quadrillion. They finally had their man. On June 20th, 2018, Tacoma police arrest Gary C. Hartman, 66, and charge him with rape and first-degree murder. Gary Hartman has pled not guilty, and according to court records, his trial is set to begin in February of this year.
I wish he would just plead guilty for Michelle's family's sake and for his family's sake too. Like, dude, 1 in 6 quadrillion? Stop. Just stop.
For real, though. So while we're not going to go into detail about the arrest or search of his property and so on, because we definitely don't want to jeopardize anything case-wise, I think we should talk a bit about Gary and his life.
But once this case is over, we will definitely do an episode and tell you all the details. They're fascinating to me.
Agreed.
All right, so let's talk more about Gary. So on the surface, like from the media files and everything that I read out there, he looked like an upstanding citizen. He was married with 2 children at the time, but he has 3 total from a previous marriage. He is a male nurse, works at the hospital. His wife is a psychologist. His daughters look well taken care of. House looks pretty decent.
Yeah, except the house looks like a fortress.
All in all, I don't even think there was an arrest record from nothing that we found. Clearly nothing major that he would be in CODIS for.
No, yeah, for sure. He seemed like a normal dude.
Yeah, but as we delve into the police reports and learned more about his family history.
Looks can be deceiving. That's the phrase I was looking for there.
Yeah.
Because he was not at all what he seemed. It appears that the person that Gary Hartman was when he was around his wife and his children is a completely different person from who Gary Hartman was anywhere else. And we have, We have accounts from acquaintances of his from that we'll talk about.
I think one thing that was odd too, like if it means something, we don't know what it means, but he had like 16 registered vehicles to his name and his wife had no clue about any of them.
Yep. He had 15 and they were hot rod cars.
Yeah. So I think the only thing that says to me really is that he has secrets, likes to keep secrets.
The other thing though that might be is that because the police couldn't find these cars, he had one hot rod like in his property, in his possession, and then a regular car. But the other 14, they never located. So I think from things that we've read, it seems as though he was not very computer savvy, not very tech savvy. So I think maybe he just sold them, would buy and sell, because the police, when they were following him for weeks and weeks or even months, I don't know, before they arrested him, they saw him at these hot rod shows. And I think he probably bought and sold them, but never transferred the titles. Is that a thing? I don't really know how that works.
But needless to say, the differentiator between Robert Washburn and Gary Hartman was his family was shocked.
Yeah.
I don't even think they believed it at first.
I know they definitely didn't.
I think his wife was, are you sure he didn't mean to get his younger brother? His younger brother's the creepy one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even to the point where they wouldn't allow him to be around their daughters because he was so weird and just inappropriate.
His wife, they met in 95. So this was well after what happened with Michella. And he could have been a totally different person at that point.
Yeah. And they married in 96.
And adopted 2 girls right away.
Yeah, from China. And they traveled to China twice each time to get those girls. What we've learned about his early life growing up, he was seriously neglected. His mother remarried and his stepfather was extremely physically abusive. He was a terrible human being. He was allegedly sexually abused by his uncle. He was repeatedly raped by this uncle, and nobody did anything about it. So it would seem he had a pretty traumatic childhood. That being said, definitely not an excuse or a reason to do something like this, because there are a lot of people that have terrible, horrible, traumatic childhoods. Actually, they are the majority. The majority of people that have horrible, terrible, traumatic childhoods grow up and they do not hurt other human beings. So,
yeah, I remember learning someone close to him said he described his childhood as fighting and fucking.
Yeah, that's what he said. And he apparently lost his virginity at like the age of 11 or 12, super young, to somebody, it was to a girl that was older. And I just can't imagine. That's awful for any kid. And that kind of makes me, feel for him a little bit, but that only lasts for about 0.3 seconds. And then I remember what horrible thing he did. And
as an adult.
Yeah, he was 35 years old. 35. Ugh.
So again, with Washburn, I really do think that we're going to find, as time passes, more cases that he's tied to. I don't think with Washburn that was his one and only, but there are reasons that I do believe that in Michella's case, she very well could have been one and only for Gary. And why I think that is because when he was being followed by the police, he noticed it. He knew. He's always been looking over his shoulder. So he told coworkers. He said that he did something 30 years ago and he thinks that their family's following him, or he didn't know if the hospital he worked for was following him, but he knew he was being followed. So for him to communicate that to coworkers that I did something 30 years ago and that he thought that it was the family following him of something that he did kind of shows me that he instantly knew what he had done from one person. But that was just stuck out to me as something that was in my head. If that's true that he said that to a coworker, then perhaps this was something that he did out of something personal that was going on. I think he was going through a divorce from his first wife.
Yeah, I couldn't get specifics on that. I just know that we weren't able to really get an exact timeline on dates. We know that his first wife was his high school sweetheart. He married her right after high school. And then I don't know, and I don't think you didn't find out either when he got divorced exactly, right?
No, but I think it was early on, and then he married another girl,
Right.
divorced her, remarried his high school sweetheart again, and had a baby.
Yeah.
And then divorced, and then married the girl that he's with now.
Yeah.
I think that his daughter was born kind of around the same time that happened to Michella. So I don't know.
Maybe that was a trigger.
Right. Like, did she get pregnant and take off and leave? Or did she,
well,
was
and
this
the
after, but
the fact that she was his high school sweetheart, probably the first person that he really felt really loved him because he had no real secure attachments or love from anyone that he should have growing up. And then to have her get pregnant or whatever, and if they're getting a divorce, whatever was happening, it would make sense that it was happening around that time. And that would be because there are things that can pile up on people that already have predilections to violence or aggression or whatever. And it's also been said, I don't know how true it is, that he had a serious drinking problem at that point in time too. And when he would drink, he would rage. He would be violent and unpredictable. So, I mean, who knows? None of which is an excuse. I'm going to say that a million times. I was a psychology major at one point, and this is like fascinating to me, what makes people tick. And it would make sense if, the love of his life, they're splitting and she's pregnant and he just loses his mind.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know. So we're kind of just grasping at straws. But I think if you put the puzzles together, that kind of makes the most sense. But what we do know is that there was some kind of bad blood between his daughter, the first daughter, biological daughter, and his wife. So from what I can tell, they weren't really close. And the reason being is because her mother, the high school sweetheart, when she remarried, she invited Gary to her wedding. But when Gary married Lynn, they did not invite them to the wedding, which...
Right, because Lynn said her family couldn't wrap their heads around it. They thought it was weird and not okay. So she just said, forget it, I'm not going to invite them. And the daughter got mad.
And if they got married in 1996 and that's still lingering over their relationship, then...
Another thing that points to this being a one and done kind of situation for me is his employment history, his jobs. Before this happened, he had worked at Coca-Cola as a delivery man for quite a few years. And then in his late 20s, early 30s, he became a manager for a Safeway. But then, interestingly, he, right after Michella's murder in late 86, early 87, he started working at Western State, which is a psychiatric hospital in Washington. He started out as something basic, a medical technician or something like that, and then worked his way up. He got his LPN and he continued working there, and then he left and worked for a small hospital called St. Clair's, and he was working in med surg, which I think is some sort of surgery department, and he's probably a technician that hands the tools or whatever. And he meets his wife, his current wife, in 95. They get married in 96. He goes back to school and gets his RN and in 1997, he leaves St. Clair's and goes back to Western state where he becomes a community care specialist. What's even more interesting about the position that he ends up in is he works trying to find placement for difficult to place residents. So these people come into the psych ward for treatment for mental illness, whatever.
But it's not just treatment. Well, yeah, treatment, but can't they be admitted because it's court ordered?
Right. So sometimes it's just treatment that people get, but there are different varying units and levels. And the people that he worked with specifically were difficult to place because they were aggressive, violent people, like arsonists, rapists, or people that had been institutionalized for 10 to 15 years because of their predilections for violence and bad acts on others, and didn't know those people didn't know how to live non-institutionalized. So he would have to try to place them back into the community, into some sort of I think like halfway house, but it's not. It's, like an assisted living for old people.
So he was basically like the gateway to give these violent criminals their freedom or keep them in the psych ward.
And according to acquaintances and coworkers, he was extremely overzealous with getting these people out, giving them another chance to be out. And he would have several agencies saying, no. That person can't leave the hospital. We're not taking them. That's a risk. I mean, several different agencies. And he wouldn't take no for an answer. He would work these people, these agencies, work them until he got the person out. And according to his coworkers, he almost always would. He would get his way and get them out. So is he doing it to let people out like that are bad? Or is he like, dang, this could have been me. They deserve a second chance too. I mean, I guess we'll never know because we're just like Washburn. We're not him. And
we can become mind hunters.
Oh, I would love to be a mind hunter.
It's interesting. I always wonder, like, how is his family dealing with this? Like, these two girls, I think one was he was arrested in 2018. I think one of them was like 18 and 19 or 18 and 20.
18 and 20, yep.
Yeah, they're young. And his wife, like, how are they dealing with it? Are they supporting him? If he's going not guilty, is he saying, I didn't do it? And like, are they struggling with that? But one thing I actually stumbled upon yesterday when I was doing some final research, I found a court record that in May, his wife filed for legal separation.
From all the research that we did initially when we did all that stuff, when we were looking at all the media stuff, I haven't really seen anything about them.
I'm sure they lawyered up and they're protecting themselves as they should.
But still, the media, like we said before, are vultures. They will camp outside your house. They will, but I don't think I don't know. Maybe they did.
Well, the trial hasn't started yet, so.
I would have thought they would have done that when they arrested him.
I struggle with wanting to give as much information as possible, but while also having respect for the families and their privacy. But one thing I will say, because it just creeped me out, and I don't know, you can let me know if we should put it on the website or not, but I took a side-by-side of what Gary Hartman's wife looks like now and what Michella looked like then.
She could be your daughter.
It looks like his wife looks like Michella all grown up.
Yeah, it looks like the age progression that someone would do, a missing
Even
kid.
The smiles, like it's really, really creepy.
I think we should put it up because here's the thing. When we first started looking, we found his wife. Anyone that Googles can find this woman. Just don't harass her and don't be a jerk and don't, leave her alone. But
man, it's creepy.
Yeah, we're putting that up there.
So go to sellspodcast.com.
But we're not putting anything up about his kids.
No.
Nope.
So we've talked all about how we think this could have been a one-off and he just turned himself around after this crime was committed. But not completely. Hartman worked at a psychiatric hospital for 30 plus years. And this is a large facility with lots of other people for him to have to interact with.
There are coworkers that said he was super inappropriate sexually. Like he would tell stories about sex stuff, like oral sex, anal sex, and talk about all the many women that he had sex with that he worked with at the hospital over the years, and talk about them like they were objects and not actual people.
Wait, over the years, so...
He worked there for 30 years. He just left briefly to work at that
doesn't really say if he was like a cheater.
No.
It could have been before.
Yeah. But who knows? He could have been a cheater.
So he literally worked there since he did that.
He started there in late 86 or early 87.
That's so weird.
He quit his job at Safeway, grocery store, and went to work there. And it's interesting that he went from like a, I don't know, manager position at a grocery store to a helping job, a job where you work with people to help people in a hospital setting. And from there, just took to it and got his LPN and got his RN. And what is also interesting is how different he was. I can't let go of it when he was with his wife and his children versus other people. Even when they were watching him at the car shows, he would chat up everyone, super chatty with strangers, chatty. And he wasn't like that at home. He was quiet, reserved guy, not a lot of, and also not inappropriate, didn't do anything gross or raunchy, I guess, with his wife, as far as we know in that way. She was a straight and narrow, not doing any of that kind of weird, kinky stuff.
She was actually a psychologist.
Yes, which is also...
How do you not know? But I think it just goes to show you, like, somebody who can commit such a heinous crime.
Yeah.
And go undetected for 30 years and live his life the way that he's lived it has to have different personalities.
Yeah, he is like a master chameleon. I mean, and they had no idea. His wife, his kids, no clue. No clue. Never in a million years would have ever thought that he would ever do anything like that. But again, I go back to people that he knew in his work setting, in his hot rod car setting, totally could see that he was a creep. And there was even a coworker that said when they found out about all of this, they were shocked that, first of all, that he murdered someone and that it was a little girl. They said they totally would have seen or believed that he would rape someone. Like they could totally see that as being plausible.
One of his coworkers said the first time that they met him, she had to wipe her hands off, that when she shook his hand, it gave her the creeps and the heebie-jeebies, and she went and washed her hands.
And there's some people that pick up on that stuff more than others. And maybe she was just one of those people that was like, ugh.
Well, apparently not a clinical psychologist because she married him. Sorry.
Listen, love is blind. But also, I think that he maybe didn't share that stuff with her. She had no reason to push it, because usually when someone has crazy stuff like that in their past or is capable of something, they give off red flags. There are some indicators at some point in time. So either he was really that good or love was blind and she... But I would say, too, his kids seem okay. they had no idea either. It would be one thing if the wife was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And the kids were like, yeah, dad was a dick. But no, they had two well-adjusted, non-traumatized children.
I mean, they considered their dad one of their best friends.
Yeah. It's just bizarre. All of this to this point and all these things that we've been going back and forth, Cole and I have been, spitballing here in this last little segment, are pure conjecture. It's just our thoughts, our analysis. There's not really any solid information backing us up on any of this. But
there's also not a lot of information post-arrest because everyone's hush-hush and the court case hasn't started yet.
Right. So that was what I was going to say. But he's about to go to trial, even though they do keep delaying it. Hopefully, what's his next court date that you found?
The 30th.
Okay.
January 30th.
Because it was supposed to be like the 3rd, and then they
adjourned it.
Okay.
Or continued it.
So they can only do that so many times.
They've done it 4 times already.
According to court records, since the last one before the one on the 3rd, between this one and the one before, all the discovery has been submitted. So usually that's why they delay it, because they give the prosecution time to turn over the discovery. So it looks like all the discovery has been turned over. So hopefully on the 30th, the trial will actually start. And maybe at the end of that, we'll have some answers.
I kind of have one more conspiracy hole to go down here. All these dudes in Tacoma, Washington, killing all these girls, separate guys. If you remember, Mary, the hairdresser, picked out of a lineup another notorious serial killer friend and placed him in the area of where Michella was last seen in the same day. So if that's true, was there some kind of club? Was he like a mentor? I think I read Girl with the Dragon Tattoo one too many times, but that's what I think of when I keep hearing about all of these serial killers in the Tacoma area. How can there be that many guys and they not know each other or be connected somehow? Look back then. Now you have the internet. Now you can just creepy McCreepster friend people any which way. And there's a dark web. I don't know. I feel like there had to have been some kind of creepy McCreepster club.
Absolutely. And even still today, it's so weird. And it weirded me out when I first started as a probation officer working with sex offenders, how these creeps, they must have creepdar. They gravitate towards each other. They will live together and they will hang out in the same places and they all know each other. It's so weird. And it's not on the internet either. Most of these people aren't allowed to be on the internet. Even today, you're not allowed to have a computer. You're not allowed to have internet access. Maybe that's how they originally got in trouble, like chat rooms and things like that. But they're strictly monitored once they're on probation, but they still find each other. So I think over the course of these episodes, we have learned a couple things, important things, or some important takeaways. First of all, if someone commits rape, sexual assault, violence against women or children, do not let them out of prison. Please don't give them a slap on the wrist. And please don't let them out of prison because they will do it again. Every single time.
And it will escalate.
Yes. And what is that about anyway? When they are letting these people back out on the streets, or they're just, I would see it all the time. Here's some probation. People that should never have probation. You can rape your stepchild and get 10 years probation. That's nothing.
I'm just so over somebody getting arrested for a little bit of pot and getting like 3 years of their life taken away, and then somebody who psychologically F's you up for the rest of your life as a child, nothing.
Yeah. And even a lot of pot. I don't think that even if you have pounds and pounds of marijuana, you should be going to federal prison at all. You should get probation. You should have the people the services in the community that can help you get a job or make better choices or not smoke pot, or whatever the reason is. Those are the people that need the services that things like probation would provide. There are therapists and group therapy and sex offender therapy. No offense to sex offender therapists, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. There's something wrong with them. It's a mindset. I had one person describe it to me as, for example, for pedophiles, which are prepubescent children. Hebophiles are people that are attracted to children that are pubescent but not of age. Pedophiles and hebophiles, that is what they are attracted to, period. It would be like going to someone who is heterosexual, a man, and saying, you need to stop liking women. You need to like men. You need to be attracted to men. You can't be attracted to women anymore. That's not going to happen. Or going to a gay man and saying, you really need to like women. You can't, I'm sorry, but this doesn't work. It's not going to happen. So for people that are attracted to children, you can't just go to them or put them in therapy or whatever and tell them they need to be attracted to someone else. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. They need to be put somewhere where they are not a danger to our children and to our community. Period.
Enough is enough.
Get mad.
Now, we told you in the beginning of this series, we would tell you how you can get involved and you can make a difference in solving more cases like these.
The database for ancestry DNA is the key to all of this. After all of these cases have been breaking, GEDmatch first went in and switched all their settings. So initially, when you would upload to GEDmatch, the default was public. Now they went in and they put everyone to private. So if you're already in GEDmatch and you want to help, you have to go in and click your consent for law enforcement. It specifically says allow law enforcement to use your sample. You have to click that consent. They were just bought by another company who has said that they are going to be even more strict with allowing law enforcement to use the samples, which I get in a way. I've been a little bit paranoid about it myself. Just for it being used for other purposes other than violent crimes or sexual assaults.
Well, I think the thing that triggered GEDmatch to make this change, to make it the default, to be not accessible to law enforcement, was because a law agency went in there and used it for a non-violent crime.
But a law was just passed saying that they're not allowed to do that anymore. They passed a federal law saying that those samples, that DNA, was not allowed to be used for anything other than violent or sexual crimes. So that's not really a concern. They're not going to be, they can try to use it for that, but it wouldn't hold up in a court of law because it's illegal.
Right, but they made that change before this law was in effect.
Yeah. I'm just saying for people that are concerned about that, there's a law now that protects you from that. So the other thing is if you did Ancestry or 23andMe or
Family Tree or
there's
any
a National Geographic one too.
You spit in a tube and put it in a mailbox.
If you haven't uploaded your profile to GEDmatch and you want to help and that's something you want to do, you just go to whatever website for whatever company that has your profile, whatever tube you spit in, and you have the option of downloading your profile. You save it to your computer or whatever it is that you're on, and then you go to GEDmatch and you upload it to their site and then click the consent But if you are like me and struggle with things, like I struggled a little bit when I was doing that with mine, with the downloading and the uploading, my computer sucked and was just giving me error messages and it was annoying. So if you struggle with it or you have an issue with it, what we are urging people to do and what we have done ourselves is we've written to Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree. We've written to those companies and asked for them to give their users an option to allow police to search their databases, because as of right now, they are all strictly private, period. Law enforcement cannot look at any of their profiles without a warrant, which, if you really think about it in these cases, they're never going to get a warrant, because to get a warrant, you have to have probable cause, and they don't even know who the heck they're looking for. So they don't even know, they don't have any probable cause ever. So that just doesn't work out.
And I also think that it's a good marketing ploy for one of these companies to do this. A fan DM'd us and said that they never have done an at-home ancestry test, but they wanted to. But the reason they didn't was because they thought they'd be severely disappointed if they didn't solve a murder based on one of their relatives. So I feel like a lot of people be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I can help solve one? Like, sure, let's
Some people's initial reaction is, oh my gosh, I would never want to be the reason that someone in my family gets put away. Well, two things. Realistically, your second cousin twice removed or whatever.
I only know one person that comes up out of my like 6,000 family matches.
Right. And secondly, do you really want to protect a murderer or a rapist, even if they are related to you? Because I don't.
No.
Lock them up. I don't care. Okay. Wrapping it up for finally, for realsies. Join us in a few weeks for our next case. We will tell you how chewing gum, a water bottle, a half-sister, and at-home ancestry kits solved the 25-year-old rape and murder of a 24-year-old school teacher. She was attacked and brutally murdered one morning in her own home as she was getting ready to walk out the door to head to school, just 4 days before Christmas, with presents for her students in tow. We will break down the case day by day, year by year, decade by decade, until an arrest was made at an elementary school dance.
And we just want to say thank you again, everyone, for listening. And if you have any questions for us about the case or DNA or genetic genealogy or anything really, just shoot us a message. Our plan moving forward will be to release either several episodes at once each month for you to binge, or at a minimum, an episode bi-weekly, depending on the information we are able to collect about each case and the complexity of the investigations, which is why it's so important for you to subscribe to the podcast so you get alerts when new episodes come out. We appreciate you being patient with us as we navigate through these cases and this new technology, and we look forward to telling you more stories like Michella and Jenny's.
Till next time.
And remember, if you find yourself in a scary situation, then put up a fight. Scratch, scream, kick, and bite, and get that DNA. This podcast is brought to you by Ramsgate Media.